So maybe things have gotten better, but in the meantime, it kind of reminds me, and this is something we talked about as well, that kind of reminds me of like back in the day when Perizo came out and everybody was like, okay, this map doesn't make any sense. Nobody can get past point A. But by the time contenders actually rolled around, like 4 or 5 weeks later or something, everybody was just blasting through point A. Like things had shifted dramatically. So I'm hoping that's still the case here, that we'll see a little bit of a repeat scenario.
Yeah, there's still discussions as well for like how you want to approach these different maps, right? Icebreaker, I know when it first released, everyone was like, oh, you're just gonna roll on the opposite side of the point right next to that health pack at the hull of the ship, but now it feels like teams are sort of veering towards engine room and having control of that. And we'll see things like the Rhine Rush come through. I know Bastion as well tends to actually be a pretty popular DPS pick just because of how closed off some of those lanes are in the engagement. And so as a result, because you're playing into that really quite heavy death ball composition, you're connecting the Bastion damage to as many players in as close and enclosed a space as possible, which is why both of these teams are fielding this exact composition.
And one of the other things to look out for as well is just the outright shield break and the ability for the maze to kind of close off some of those lines, be able to catch someone out. We'll see if they can actually get that. And you already see, of course, Stone extending that wall. We're going to be waiting for that to be done. In the meantime, Shikigami going to be shifting over to the objective now to take control. But Altiora certainly lying in wait, readying that opportunity. And it's all going to come down to these walls, whether or not they can actually catch Faded, catch Kindred on the other side. Timing is key. But Altiora, they put the map back control of the objective as well. And with that wall going down, they actually look to take down Kindred, and Kindred is low, but saved for the time being by Paradox, and he's going to give his life away over for it.
Yeah, Paradox actually going down is massive for Shikigami because he'd actually gone down with Ant Matrix. So it is going to be Shikigami getting a pretty quick flip, and now they can take control of these chokes. And even though it was Altiora who were able to take advantage of that first fight, now they actually have to move through onto a setup that is going to be that with control of that choke, with that shield break like you mentioned, and also with the danger that every single Reinhardt faces in terms of this composition, walking forward and getting isolated quite literally by a Maywall.
Walls going back down, and as well are the Ant Matrices going to be losing their immortality, and Shikigami just looking to sustain for the time being. Widow was early through that ult, goes ahead and tries to find controls, but not going to be successful in that regard. In the meantime, Shikigami clears the objective, throws everything they have at it. Altiora, they're going to be falling to the wayside for a second time in a row. Still holding on to that 50% that they had initially, but overall, Shikigami doing a great job to stave them off.
Yeah, really good Blizzard coming out from Anhu on that Mei, making sure that Altiora are not really able to push onto the point and actually force Shikigami into taking a frontline fight. Instead, they are able to split and separate all of those members away from each other. This next one is going to be interesting because Kindred doesn't have a shatter, but Faded does. The problem is now you have to get in position to be able to use it. As there comes the shatter, it does manage to connect onto a majority of the members, and there's the follow-up. Plato in that form is able to absolutely tear through all of those members. Remember, Shadow got a little bit of a tinker around, and you do stay stunned just a little bit longer. So that Bastion is absolutely dancing with the shooting gallery that they were gained access to.
A little bit of a replay here as Kindred just worked his way around. There was no way that you could even block that. So great job from Faded. Now you're going to be seeing Shikigami looking to solidify this. It could really come down to the Blizzard here from Stone. A lot of pain coming out from both sides as Okui is going to actually engage with the sound barrier. Altiora pushing back Shikigami, but a great opportunity is lying in wait here for Shikigami as they're going to answer back with one of their own. They've lost a player though, and who not going to be able to get the sound barrier in time, and just like that, Shikigami, they're going to be deciding to fall back and go again as 5.
Yeah, Altiora are going to be able to sit on this Ant Matrix. Kindred with a couple of really nice time fire strikes is going to immediately be able to rocket up into that shatter. What they have to watch out for is Plato coming in with this Bastion ult, because he can't just throw it into that choke to try and force Altiora back. But there's the wall! Faded tries to drop to safety and get that health pack, but Lukewarm is able to cut him off before his team can save him. And as a result, Shikigami are forced to wait for their Rhine to respawn.
That's one of the things here about Bastion, is just the outright shield pressure that you get through that, and of course all the other elements of the composition, but really the Bastion is the one thing. And now you're going to be seeing Shikigami looking to try to buy some space there for Beta this time around, but it's just not going to work out. Still, Altiora find a way to just rip him down. Now, that wait, Shikigami is slowly becoming pretty dire.
Yeah, I felt like that was just a little misstep in terms of the timing. Speaking of missteps, that is a shatter. Absolutely smacking Shikigami into the ground, and what was Shikigami just waiting 30 seconds for that Rhine has spiraled into them just staggering into these fights, men down, and as a result, Altiora, just with the trickle win, are able to walk away with the point.
I mean, for a while there, it was kind of looking like we're going to see Shikigami actually just dominant, at least in this year. That's very often being employed by Plato, even Faded, going in and finding a nice off to catch everybody off guard with powder. But Lord, I mean, if you look at these replays and just how Altiora were able to turn that, but again, that late round composure, sometimes that's all that it takes.
Yeah, Faded as well. You could see that they were really just focusing on isolating that Reinhardt out. As we are going to head over towards sub-level. This is the map that is touted as most similar to Oasis Gardens, and it has the same strategy. Everyone tries and speed boosts their way towards that high ground as quickly as possible to be able to gain control to it. Both these Meis going to be looking for an impactful wall. The walls come through, doesn't manage to isolate any Rhine out, but a lamp is forced from Altiora to keep lukewarm, pushing aggressively forward. The Bastion stays standing, and Shikigami are forced back to spawn.
They played their Paradox yet again here, actually. It feels like just coming out. Last round, we saw the save onto Kindred that set them up, and now we see the save onto Lukewarm that set them up in the neutral fight.
Yeah, and Altiora, as a result, like, because it was just so one-sided in that fight, Paradox is so close to Ant Matrix, and unfortunately for Shikigami, they're a little bit behind. There's a really good Mei wall to come through, but they still haven't been able to find the kill because, again, the Immortality Field saves Kindred.
Lord, though, down on people have to back off. That field is being dangerously low, so Kindred, Altiora have to be so careful now. They're going to be looking for the best resources to stabilize themselves. There it is, Paradox window. Sure that everybody Altiora goes back to 100. In the meantime, Shikigami's going to wait that out and now go for the engagement. First shatter at the ready here, though. Fourth Faded. It goes back to the top. And on the backside, what a play there for Faded. Shikigami, you're going to get control.
Yeah, being able to come in with that shatter a little bit earlier than Kindred is absolutely massive. They even force out that lamp very early on from Paradox just by threatening to be able to push into that frontline fight. So when the shatter comes through, there is just no way that Altiora are able to bail themselves out of the damage. You can see the shatter comes out and the lamp is still up. Then the focus comes on through. Lamp has already worn its purpose, and Shikigami already in the ground. Ant Matrix is going to come out from Shikigami once again, just trying to control this lane. Altiora, with a really nice wall coming through from Stone and Sound Barrier from Still Kiwi, are able to take the fight right back over to point, and as a result, Shikigami still have to invest more ultimates to be able to turn this around.
Stabilized in Altiora, but Kindred down and Stone down. Not a lot of staying power here. Shikigami has lost all of their sustain, and they will lose the point along with them.
So many ultimates invested, and unfortunately for Shikigami, they are the ones that come up a little bit short, and that is going to reflect in their next pushes. They are going to not really have a lot to play around with, only the shatter to come through from Faded, and even then this Reinhardt is going to have such a hard time actually being able to close up the distance and make that shatter count because the shield break is there, and if you try and push aggressively forward onto this comp, you're going to be walking right into that Mei wall, and that's going to force the Immortality Field out far too early. There's a Blizzard to come on through. They've isolated Faded away from his team. The charge comes out from Kindred to keep the Reinhardt even further. The lamp comes through, but it doesn't save Faded for long. And as a result, Shikigami are going to have to try and back away cleanly, but the disengage is not there. Plato still gets caught behind him. We're headed into final fight territory, and Shikigami, because of how one-sided that fight was, still only have a shatter to play with.
Not a lot out of rest of Worlds on at all here. I found desired to drop that window. They're going to have a ton of allies in the high ground, dealing with all these. They're going to go and drop the match. Hated me with the hammer. Overtime is here. So Shikigami needs to win this fight, or they will lose the map along with it. Altiora lost his own as long as they can, just to make sure that Shikigami pulls as many resources out as they can. And Altiora goes to the wayside. There's the flip now and rides.
Shikigami don't play into what Altiora are wanting either. They know that they have to last another 40% to be able to even equalize and see us into overtime.
If Altiora
they
did it.
hold on, and absolutely, if Altiora did it, Shikigami have, because Altiora are in the exact same position. They've got a shatter, and that's about it, other than the sound barrier. Plato playing all the way from the back is just waiting as well. Ant Matrix comes on through, Blizzard from Anhu, as Shikigami try and win this fight. But Altiora are still able to drop down. They've lost a lot of their players, most specifically Paradox. And we've seen when this map goes down, the team tends to go down aligned them.
A good initial play there from Altiora, catching faded. We've seen it a couple of times. Shikigami explosive in their own right. We've seen a lot of early pressure go out from their side, but they might not have to even really rely on that here. Altiora trying to make their way into the objective, but taking so much pressure in the process. They do manage to get that to go up. So overtime is going. In the meantime, Shikigami just has so much resources saved up in that last fight. They should be able to figure this out. Blizzard down. Oh, now trying to turn the fight. Blizzard comes out. They're looking to deal with it. Use that huge match now to put things out of this fight. And Altiora just trying to last a little bit longer. Unfortunately for them, this doesn't take us to be too much.
Yeah, Kindred comes back in onto the Doomfist. This is Altiora just trying to swap through all of the heroes with high mobility to keep overtime in play. But the wick burns out, Shikigami takes sub-level, and we head to the next map of Peninsula. It looked a little bit close, it looked a little bit dicey, and this is probably where lots of these players and coaches are talking about this map being extraordinarily punishing. Right, getting control, especially of this high ground lane, is just guaranteeing you 30% of the point at least. Because of how clumped up it forces all of the enemy players into being when they actually look for the engagement. They have two choices. You either try and pull back onto that high ground to regain control of it, or you really hope that you've ordered your drop down from the high ground to the low ground point to be within cohesion. Otherwise, you're losing players and you're very quickly going to lose any momentum picked up on that point.
Move on to round number 3. Both teams offering up a great comeback and they're winning rounds. Now, all down to this. Who's going to be able to come up 1-0, start things off. Walls go down, and already Anhu is taken out. Shikigami now match it, and they have the firepower as well. Faded, trying to fall back, and they're looking to actually take Kindred. And they do. Altiora back to the objective, and rather back to respawn as Shikigami takes control.
Yeah, Shikigami takes control not just of that point, but also of the high grounds right parallel beside it. And that is what Altiora were dreading, because once again, now they have to make their way through chokes, but now Plato is going to be set up in that back lane, and he's going to be able to get so much poke pressure onto Kindred's Reinhardt shield. You can actually see Altiora having to take these side angle approaches and try and regain a high ground control opposite of the point that Shikigami are set up on. Faded holds on to the shatter, gets in position, but the May wall is good! It boosts him up into the sky, and as a result, the hammer connects onto no one.
Already, Altiora. I mean, the ability to just flip, even when you're down in resources, just using some of that base utility in your kit to get an advantage, that's something that both these teams have obviously proven that they're capable of. And in spite of the fact that Shikigami just had so much saved up from a successful first fight, they just eliminated that as a threat.
Yeah, and Kindred now gets to play the mind games with Faded as well. So it forces Faded into the position to retain some health bar on this Reinhardt shield, otherwise it's a free shatter. The Shikigami are actually just using Ant Matrix to bruise force Altiora off of that high ground and push them onto the point, push them towards Plato's ultimate as they drop down, but Kindred is waiting with a shadow behind them. Doesn't manage to connect. Faded was actually still able to block for the majority of it since it hit the Rhine hitbox. Altiora are still able, with this tank set up on that point, going in deep with the charge. The fire strike to catch the remaining members of Shikigami as they try and push their way back towards the health pack. They keep control at this point the entirety of that fight, and so they've been able to eclipse Shikigami's control.
You have to wonder how Shikigami wants to play this here as well. Lukewarm's just going to kind of bide their time a little bit, force Shikigami to kind of play back. Just free seconds, free control progress. Shikigami, I think that they really want to try to take this fight over to the objective if they can, because Blizzard at the ready, presence is going to be something that they are in favor with. So they can push Altiora off this high ground, drop this Blizzard, see if they can get some value, but they may not even need it. They've already taken out Shikigami. That was the main sustaining ult that Altiora were going to rely on in this fight. And now it's just out of the question. You can't do it. Wall goes up. Just like that, the Blizzard goes down as well to match. 86% here on the board for Altiora. They're looking to try to save this one and go ahead and take the map victory. Unfortunately for them, Shikigami is just throwing everything at them, and Altiora struggling to stay upright.
Yeah, Shikigami still holding on to ultimates. Altiora had just used every single thing they had at their disposal, and they're still not able to flip the fight in their favor. It did take an amplification matrix to come through after Paradox had faded, so they're not going to have that to be able to play around with, but Plato can use this Bastion to be able to delay Altiora, just as we saw Lukewarm once again cementing control of Shikigami to hold onto this high ground. Altiora once again going to be taking this signed wraparound approach. We have to know that Faded has Shatter. Are we going to be able to see Stone come in with another clutch wall as they're bombarded at every single side by this Bastion so that Shikigami can just hold on a little bit longer?
Be a little bit of play here. Faded trying to sneak one out yet again. They're going to be looking for it. Unfortunately, not find it. Great job from Stone to block that one out. Great reaction. Unfortunately for Altiora, the reaction doesn't really result in what they were looking for, which was a fight win, and just Shikigami taking the win again.
I mean, they did, however, go a little bit too aggressive. Hinged goes down on the chase as they try to push Altiora even further towards their spawn, guaranteeing that they wouldn't be able to tap onto this point. And Lukewarm coming in with the swap onto Tracer is actually going to allow Kindred to come in with the Shatter. Stone gets to immediately follow that up with a Blizzard gorgeous wall to make sure that Shikigami supports are backed away and they're not actually able to bail the Bastion out, and Altiora turning the fight around.
I'm just seeing a little bit, seem a little bit like getting that first 99 is just you're just going to take it out between these two teams. I think that's 3 for 3. Altiora taking the win though on the first map here. They go up 1-0, but back and forth. Definitely a massive amount of contrast to our first series.
Well, Anhu is going to take play of the game, but I tell you what, Stone is going to start living in Reinhardt's heads rent-free. 2 block shatters. One by the boost up with the Maywall, and the second with that ice block. He has been doing some serious work to make sure that Altiora is still able to turn that fight around. There you can see the shatter coming on through. Kindred unfortunately not able to land it onto the members of Shikigami that they were looking for. But it is just Shikigami going a little bit too aggressively forward. And I feel that this is actually a little bit of a bait play coming in with how this particular map on Antarctic is designed. Because you feel like you can push a little bit deeper towards your opponent's spawns, and as a result, if you don't all stay on the same page of that, you can get caught out because, again, health packs and different flank routes that are available to your opponents. It's a lot more open when you start to cross away from that little miniature health pack on those side steps. And as a result, the Lucio goes in thinking, okay, we're going to push aggressively into that spawn. They're not going to be able to touch. We're going to win this easy peasy. We'll know that if they're able to keep that contest, they're going to have ultimates over us, so we have to guarantee that we win it here and now. But that message doesn't really get conveyed to the rest of the team. And then when you lose the Lucio, you lose the ability to reposition yourselves. And we saw what happened in the first series where there is an absence of the Lucio. It very quickly becomes a domino effect that affects the entire team.
Yeah, I think that's why we've been hearing so many people in the scene say that that map is just so punishing. At least for the time being, it feels like that does ring true. It certainly rang true in what we just saw, because even when a team is up like 100 to 40%, where you would, or rather 99 to 40% or so, I mean, just the punishment that you can deliver if you're efficient and, you know, playing to the map's strengths, playing to your comp strengths, you can turn that map pretty effectively. But that's one map done and dusted. We are sure to have a couple more, if not beyond a couple. But the next one we're going to be moving on into is, I would say, very much a fan favorite, Kings Row, a map that we've seen, I would say, quite a lot as of late. And by late, I mean last year, so it has been some time. But Kings Row, that was a popular map for a long time. It kind of worked its way out for a little bit, and oh man, is it back.
It's cropping up. It's cropping back up now that Rhine Rush is back. And I mean, it makes sense, right? This is the sort of OG Rush map that we saw Daffle with, you know, the Reinhardt and the Zarya, and you would just steamroll your way forward. You entirely remove the S key on your keyboard. There was only W. You would only ever move forward. And I feel like that's exactly what both of these teams are going to be trying to do. It makes sense that this is where we get to go again, because you can carry that Mei forward. Someone in Overwatch is just going around all of those chokes with a tape measure, making sure that they're all just perfectly measured in distance for Mei walls to be able to isolate anyone who unfortunately walks on through. And that sort of forces your hand to again run that map, so you can use those exo boots, breach the distance, jump over the wall, drop the immortality field, and save your Reinhardt. And that puts a lot of pressure right onto these maps to be able to retain that immortality field for as long as possible. Because the hefty cooldown means that if it doesn't save your Reinhardt and you're immediately able to turn that fight around, you're not going to be sitting in the fight long enough to see a second opportunity come your way.
Yeah, and I think my curiosity has peaked a little bit here, because when you look at the way that last map transpired, we saw some great moments where when things got linear, Altiora was actually looking pretty solid. We saw them look good in a lot of those neutral fights. We've seen Paradox have just some absolute fight-saving plays. Whereas Shikigami, what they were really solid with is just creating these elements where they're having, you know, off angles taken by Play-Doh, even at times faded, doing these kind of really nice little trick plays off the back of some of these walls, where once this map gets linear, once we get into that phase 2, maybe even phase 3, if they're running these compositions, maybe some of that gets taken out, and some of that linear play, that style where Altiora was seeming like they were thriving to a degree, at least from their backline perspective. I wonder if Altiora actually looks pretty solid here, again, in spite of the fact that this is a map selection from Shikigami.
Yeah, it really is going to just come down to who is able to keep these Reinhardts in check, right? Once the Reinhardt falls, this composition without an anchor, without that really big chunky shield, is just going to crumble around it. So I'm going to be keeping my eye on Anhu and Stone, because we've sort of seen this pattern emerge that when one team loses a Mei, they very quickly have to just aggressively push forward and try and swing things back into their favor, because they know they don't have that element stopping and threatening the other side from getting aggressive. So they want to just bypass the middle person and take that first step themselves.
So I guess we shouldn't be surprised here by this composition taken by Altiora here on the defense. I am curious to see if Shikigami is going to be actually sticking with this or just making that last second swap. Obviously, there's still 10 seconds.
They could. They absolutely could. I mean, they've got the Lucio to try and make sure that the Ramatra is able to use this ultimate, but no, there it is. Unfortunately, Ramatra nerf has come through, and a lot of players and coaches are like, yeah, Ram is just not really played because of it as a result. And I feel like when you know that there's a Mei on the other side, you just have to run that Mei to be able to have the option of counter walling. Speaking of the wall, there it is, and immediately Shikigami have to use that immortality field to try and save Faded. Altiora, on the other hand, dropped theirs a little bit later and is so able to retain this very aggressive position around Statue, which is exactly where this round wants to play, because it means that they're walking into the fire strike.
Great set of walls, Stone. You already talked about him being potentially MVP for this period, and already once again making his name known in this map here, map number 2. Kindred gonna be falling though, just can't make it back around to the side of the statue where it would be a safe haven. Just like that, Shikigami gonna just plow forward straight up to the objective. Altiora is not gonna be able to stay long.
Yeah, this is something that we actually saw from Shikigami on the first fight when we saw them head over towards sub-level. It's that immortality field that allows them to just aggressively push into the face of Altiora so that Plato can get into that frontline position and drill as much damage as possible, so you have that ultimate to be able to pressure Altiora out from being able to pick up this positioning around choke. which is where the real time gets drained away from King's Row B pushes.
Yeah, especially with Maze in the building as well. That just makes it all the more difficult. But already a wall, kind of putting a little bit of a backboard against Altiora. Shikigami is going to be plowing forward though in the meantime, and Altiora just again getting ripped apart. It seems like the pressure differential is insane and definitely in favor of Shikigami. Plato up now to 45%. He's not Colt, where Lukewarm got dropped early, still working his way to that first ultimate.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's that sort of domino effect of Plato already coming in with the ultimate formed. So the backboard comes through from Anhu, gorgeous wall, and it immediately follows up with the Bastion ultimate, and Paradox is forced to use the Immortality field. So as a result, Shikigami, because they haven't yet been pressured, still hold on to a lamp of their own and can just push into Altiora around that corner. Now we see Altiora drop the Bastion ultimate themselves to try and isolate the Reinhardt out, and it's worked. Faded had to actually move forward to get out of the Bastion ult, and he has to walk straight into the Blizzard. Shikigami just trying to alleviate as much damage as possible, drop a Mei wall to try and pedal their way backwards and book it into towards Bookshop to try and drop a surprise Blizzard, and Altiora fall for it. They thought they were disengaging, but they go straight into the snow globe.
And not only that, but Altiora actually expend a little bit more than they really would have liked. We saw Kindred going for a fight-saving Earthshatter, which would have left him basically 1v5, trying to clean everything up on his own. So now 3.5 minutes on a time bank, and this could wind up being a lot more here. Altiora can't make it quickly over to the point, and Kindred, he might not even have a shield.
I mean, Silent Barrier has to come on through, but unfortunately, because they have to swerve around that Mei wall, they're not able to touch the point in time. Shikigami are still, even after that, winning the fight as well. Stone in that block. It's just trying to contest for as long as possible to burn away precious seconds from Shikigami's bank, because they're coming into King's Row C with 4 minutes and 34 seconds on the clock. That is an exorbitant amount of time. They've got a Shatter to play around with, a Cyber to allow them to go as aggressive as they want. That means that they can literally just walk through Paradox ultimate. Lukewarm is onto the Hanzo just for extra shield break.
And against Plato, who's been pumping it out recently, I don't know if that's even going to make much of a difference in this grand scheme of things unless they can find picks, and that's exactly what Lukewarm does. Dealing with Plato, that's Plato's first death of the map, actually. And it's going to be cleanup here for Altiora, their first fight win, I guess second fight win, not that first one. But they need to get a lot more value here out of this front corner if they're going to be able to get a lot of time extended away from Shikigami. They just have a lot.
Well, there's one way of running time up. Dragon Strike comes on through, but it doesn't find anyone, and Anhu actually drops the Blizzard to try and encapsulate all of those members of Altiora who thought that they would be able to push forward with a Dragon Strike and catch the disengaging members of Shikigami. The Uno reverse card is pulled yet again, nat 20 on the sleight of hand check, and Faded now waits to see which spawn point Altiora are going to try and push away from.
Oh, have to be so careful here. That wall goes down. High ground held in the back line, but still Kiwi gets ripped down. Blizzard really catching all that much. Shikigami is turning this fight without really much coming the other direction, and Lukewarm falls, so a 3-minute timer it's looking like here for Shikigami's attack. That is going to be almost impossible to match.
Shikigami's plays, I don't want to call them cheeky. Like, they're unexpected. They're curveballs and they're baiting Altiora. Every single time we saw them, they had really good just bait plays coming on through, baiting out Immortality Field, baiting out Blizzard, baiting out even Dragon Strike. Because honestly, like, yeah, the Hanzo against the Bastion ultimate, the Bastion's obviously going to be doing more burst damage just on his own. But when you swap over to the Hanzo, you also put in the lobby the potential to try and climb over these Mei walls and snipe out the receding members who have been isolated and punish the fact that you'd used the Mortality Field. So Altiora should have been controlling the neutral like a lot better. But again, because of how Shikigami actually play it, knowing that the Dragon Strike is coming up, saving the Lucio speed boost so that they can amp out of the way of Dragon, and then knowing that Altiora are likely going to be pushing forward with that Dragon Strike as the wind beneath their sails, knowing that they can throw down a Blizzard and literally connect with every single member of Altiora, and that there is nothing that they have to be able to sustain through the damage that comes out.
So we turn things over now. Shikigami, they're going to be on defense and a blistering pace on their attack. Certainly, I would imagine gives them quite a bit of confidence, and it's going to be up to Altiora now to try to take that away from them. And we have no surprises here, really. Outside of the fact that Lukewarm, it feels like they're seeing that differential in terms of the Bastion and the pressure output, and they're trying to find something different, an element that could give them an upper hand. Maybe it's flanking. That's what Asta's specialty really is. Fortunately, Shikigami is just doing such a good job of staving him off, making sure that he's forced back over to his team. Shikigami, they have lost their tank. Looks like Altiora now can push forward. I don't know how much that Cassidy actually managed to do there, but hey, it was enough.
It was also pressure too. Like, you saw that the magnet actually connected onto Faded, and Wisps actually had to drop the immortality field to try and keep the Reinhardt standing for as long as possible. Yes, Lukewarm didn't really come in terms of the damage department as much as they were potentially wanting, but just the threat of the cast and the distance that you have with that increase to the damage fall, so that you can still hit those 140 headshots from 25 meters away. Look at how Shikigami are having to play around this choke. They can't actually put Faded into that position to swing this hammer around the corner, because they know that Lukewarm is going to be standing on the opposite end, trying to find that connection onto the backline. As he looks for that flank, he knows that Hinge is going to be coming through. Altiora actually run back towards their spawn, and that is so unfortunate. It baits Shikigami into walking further forward, but now they pull back and Wisps walk straight into the cast.
That's exactly what they were intending to do with this pick. Lukewarm going to be giving them that first opportunity, but Shikigami just doing such a good job, even when they're down a player, finding some of these kills. Faded now investing the shatter and catching a couple with it. And we've talked already about how this choke here is just so difficult to push through. They've taken a lot of time off the clock. However, now Altiora should make their way forward.
Now, you can tell that Shikigami really wants to hold on to that choke for as long as possible, to the fact that they even invested that shatter to try to regain any semblance of a regroup, to keep a hold of it for as long as possible. We're going to get to see the flank come through yet again. Wisp's just entirely unaware of the fact that there might be a cast holding in that position. Unfortunately, gets two-tapped and sent straight back to respawn. As Altiora might be able to match this time bank. Deadeye comes through from Catwalk, connects onto Anhu. No Blizzard to be bolt up, no Blizzard to be able to stop the members of Altiora from grouping up and using that Amp Matrix to absolutely whammy through Shikigami's defenses. Faded is forced to charge out, and that should be B picked up.
The other decision as well to utilize the capacity, find these flank angles, really put the pressure
Kindred.
on.
No.
Oh man. Kindred lays it down, and it's now actually Altiora that are flanking, finding these different angles to get value out of Shikigami, just not able to check them in time. See the cap already coming through, and what was an insane time already set of just under 3 minutes by Shikigami. I mean, that could very well be matched. It could very well be beaten now by Altiora.
Yeah, we're gonna need a knife, a fork, and a spoon to eat our words, because this is looking like just as fast a push. Plato is actually gonna swap off of the Bastion to match wits with the Cassidy. And unfortunately for him, that does reset a majority of his ultimate charge. Lukewarm still holding on to this Deadeye that is going to be bolt up, combined with potentially this Blizzard is going to be absolutely devastating. There's that Mei wall having to be forced out very early on so that Shikigami can put themselves into sideline to escape. As Stone has to push forward aggressively, does drop the Blizzard, does give their life up for it. Kindred tries to push on and get that connection onto Faded. He, without a healer, will get taken down by Anhu. Paradox going to jump straight off of that map, seeing that the team are going to need to reset, not wanting to give any more ult charge over to Shikigami, because this is potentially where Altiora find all of their time being drained away.
1 minute difference now. Shikigami, they've of course got Plato over onto the Cassidy now, so no elements that are different here between the two compositions. Once again, a mirror. So obviously a lot of confidence from Plato and the rest of Shikigami as they're going to be surging forward. Now Altiora, they're going to easily back up out of this one, but caught now by Faded, who once again catches with this Earth Shatter. That's going to win the fight for them, and not only that, but it's at least going to create a situation where very likely they're going to have the better time. If not, they're going to be able to potentially stop Altiora altogether.
Yeah, this is what you worry about when you're an attacking team pushing onto King's RC. because Shikigami just have control of all of this space. They can potentially just find that poke, push, a kill, and push you straight back to spawn. Now, Altiora have to get aggressive. The Deadeye going to be blocked by Anhu coming with a blizzard, but also jumping in with the ice block to be able to cover the Cass's line of sight. Lukewarm's still able to find one for the Ant Matrix, but it's nowhere near the amount of kills that Altiora were looking for to be able to break open a full team kill and guarantee that Shikigami are not able to use the faster respawns to keep this contest going.
They certainly have to wait on Kindred as well. A lot of pressure being placed onto Faded. Shikigami needs to back him out, and they're trying to find an answer to get the team back forward, but with Faded out of the equation, and now Anhu falling as well, there's really nobody left to stay on the objective. Now Altiora is going to be surging forward, like you said before. Shikigami, they're going to have the better time, but ultimately, 2 minutes to work with versus the 2.5. Not that big of a difference in the grand scheme of things. This is certainly still winnable for Altiora.
It really is going to be all about whether or not we're going to see any other adaptation coming through from both of these teams. It's been a sort of pendulum swinging between the power for both of them, right? One goes Cass, the other mirrors straight into it. And I wonder if we're going to see the Bastions just straight up left behind in favor of this Cassidy, because you know the attacking team is 100% going to have that Cass on flank patrol.
Off guard a couple of times there with that high ground, still getting that earth shatter up on top. That's absolutely going to catch most people off guard. They don't know that that can actually go up on top of that if you're at the right position. But nonetheless, 2 minutes here for Altiora. They're going to be attacking first. So see if Shikigami, I imagine that they want to match this Cassidy. I imagine Altiora wants to bring that back as well. We at the moment see Stone on Junkrat, but that's going to go back to May. I'm not even going to entertain it.
There we
it's
go.
just not happening.
Yeah, there's no way they pull that sleight of hand on us. As it is going to be Shikigami, like we said, defending first. Altiora once again rolling out on that same composition, mirror for mirror. If one of these casters can just find a first opening pick, that's going to immediately break things open. As Altiora decide, okay, we're not going around statue, we're going for a hotel. We're going to try and just rotate onto point as quickly as possible. As now they push forward, Stone takes out Wisps, but Anhu is able to take out Stone. However, that BAP is going to be felt a lot more than a missing May. And Altiora really want to push forward and punish the fact that Shikigami just do not have a BAP to be able to sustain it on this point when it actually gets to an all-out brawl.
Yeah, as soon as you lose the Baptiste, you take every 1-to-1 you possibly can. So Faded goes forward, Kindred matches the charge and lays them both on the ground. That's a winning matchup for them. They just have that staying power. So what was 2 minutes, they're going to be able to capture that first objective, no problem. And now they're moving into that choke that we know is just so dangerous for teams to attack through. See what their plan is, what that strategy is going to be. They do not have ultimates just yet.
Yeah, it's the tennis matches. Both of these Reinhardts trying to get that Shadow online as quickly as possible. Kindred not wanting to commit too aggressively forward, because you can see Anhu just frothing at the mouth, wanting to see whether or not this round's going to go too aggressive and be able to find a wall. But Ant Matrix comes on through. The wall isn't there in time for Anhu to be able to stop the follow-up fire strike that hits Plato. And Shikigami are going to be laid out, sent straight back to spawn, as Altiora are able to find the ultimate economy first and push this payload even further.
Oh, look at this. Kindred and Lukewarm both going forward. They're going to sneak their way back into these positions, and you have to imagine that Kindred's going to be looking for this exact same play.
Yeah.
The question now is Shikigami, are they going to check? Because they haven't so far, and they did this time. I think they heard him. They didn't check. They heard him because he moved too soon there. Fortunately, he's not going to be able to have most of them in the fight, so it's just not a good play to go for that.
Oh, the good news is Kindred is actually able to get back to his team. The wall comes out from Altiora, but the blizzard hits first from Anhu, and as a result, the shatter is there. Kindred comes in with the counter, however, and Altiora are still able to take this fight and turn it in their favor. They're not only going to be able to crack open A, they're going to be able to pick up B too.
Yeah, no problem at this stage too, because he's going to be out for quite some time. In the meantime as well, Altiora only spent the Earth Shatter in that fight. They still have the ability to match Sound Barrier for Sound Barrier. They have their Blizzard as well, so a lot of control in their favor going into this next fight.
Yeah, you can see Lukewarm just setting up in position for that Deadeye to be as threatening as possible. Shikigami know that they can't really threaten this space. The Maywall comes up to try and block and mitigate away from the Deadeye. It's going to fall, but it's bought Shikigami the time to be able to make it towards that side room and health back. Plato's got a Deadeye of his own. They're going to pop it to try and force Altiora back, but Stone drops the Blizzard. They get aggressively forward to try and cancel the Deadeye out, and as a result, they can actually keep touching this car.
Slightly later Sound Barrier there as well for Altiora. That should favor them mid-fight as long as still Huey stay alive. And once again, Paradox doing such a great job of stabilizing his teammate. Altiora cleaning things up now. They just have all the sustain. Shikigami just struggling to find an inroad into these engagements and find these kills.
Kendra's looking for that fire strike to connect 93% away from the shatter. He's going to have it before Faded as well. And he's been able to get the pin to connect. As a result, no Rhine Shield. The members of Shikigami are sequestered back into that spawn. They have to face the shatter, and as a result, they don't get to contest the cut. Altiora take a full push.
Only 2 minutes. 32-second difference, but hey, that's all they needed. But something that we have seen in this map, I'm starting to wonder now if this is going to become something of a tendency for both of these teams, is struggling to get a defensive hold. Obviously, the aggression behind a lot of discussion is difficult to deal with because you have to be able to control the tempo and manage these fights in such a way where you're able to deal with a team that is just running at you. It's hard to do. It's not a lot of time to react. So obviously Shikigami has just as much potential to do what we just saw as Altiora.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail right on the head. Like, both of these teams are very aggressive, but they're also very sort of strange when it comes to the pacing of that aggression, right? They do make that defensive team feel a little bit more discomforted, and they don't really go for the traditional attacking pattern that we see. They push forward very aggressively, but not really when the defensive team is ready to handle it. So as a result, they got a lot of push, but also a lot of ultimate economy in their favor, because the defensive team is spending so many resources, things like the Maywalls and the Deadeyes, just to make sure that all 5 of their members are able to reposition and survive for a fight that comes afterwards. The problem for Shikigami is that now they also have the additional pressure of knowing that Altiora got a full push. If at any point in time this attack slows down, that's got to be a voice in the back of their head that says, are we going to be able to match this time bank? And especially with Anu going down early, this is going to trickle into a very long fight. Altiora are more than happy to be able to pick apart these members of Shikigami as slowly as possible, because it dwindles not just the time bank, but also the ultimates they're able to build up. Plato has to go onto the Bastion just to be able to try and match the damage that Lukewarm's going to be able to put out, because they know that the Cassidy is going to have Deadeye far faster than Shikigami's own.
And not only that, but even though Lukewarm goes down, still able to get up to 50% ult charge before doing so. So not all too much lost here. Nice wall comes out, but still Kindred makes it up over the top. Once again, a 1-to-1, but it's that map that gets eliminated here. Fortunately for Shikigami, they found both of the supports. Altiora now have to back off. Unfortunately, they can't do that though with the wall in place. Enhu perfectly placed, perfectly timed, and Shikigami can move forward. They can capture this first objective.
The problem is that it took a lot longer than Altiora, and Altiora are going to be coming in with ultimates into this next fight. Ant Matrix is really going to be the one turning ultimate that Altiora have to be able to keep control of this choke. Wisps is going to have one to match it, but Altiora can use theirs aggressively because Shikigami don't really have the time to be able to disengage when a defensive Ant Matrix comes on through.
All comes out. Matrix comes out for Paradox, and even though they spent the resource, Shikigami are the ones who find the pick. Lukewarm goes out, so Shikigami can very easily push their way through that chokehold, and you have to start looking at the time bank here because 30 seconds left now. There's a few opportunities, at least 3, for Altiora to make a stop. So they could even spend this time building out their ultimate and making sure that the fight that they go for is a guarantee.
Yeah, because they know, like, there is no point in committing ultimates and then being stuck in that ultimate deficit, as we see It is going to be a Deadeye first. Coming on out, Lukewarm holding his as long as possible. Maywell going to crumble. Deadeye doesn't find anything, but Altiora just using it to drain the resources of Shikigami. Shatter comes on through from Kindred. That was a little bit questionable. The stone goes into that ice block to be able to drop it onto the payload. This is the fight that they've decided to take. But Shikigami with the Sign Barrier are able to sustain through the damage. Altiora without any ultimate to follow up the blizzard damage, and Crowd Control are not able to take control of the fight.
This is going to be Shikigami just sailing through this second part of the map. And just like we said before, when this side swapped, we said Shikigami has the same exact potential that Altiora has to make it full way. And that is looking like a possibility now. However, as we transition into the final stage of this map, actually, I mean, the big thing that I'm looking at is both of those support ults and Lukewarm shifting back over to Bastion. So a lot of consistent pressure back on the table here for Altiora.
Here and Altiora don't actually have the time bank to be able to disengage from Amp Matrix the way we saw them on point A to get away from that choke. Overtime is in play, they have to take it. Faded gets pushed up into the air, and as a result, they have all of the time for Altiora to be able to react to that shadow coming on through. Lamp comes on out to keep Altiora keeping on this. Cart wall comes through from Stone to block away the remaining members of Shikigami and make sure that the Amp Matrix doesn't find anything. But it's absolutely shredded through by Plato. Still, Altiora are able to keep themselves on the card and force Shikigami back. And because overtime had been in play for so long, unfortunately, they're not able to keep the map running any longer. It was unfortunately just that little bit of a fumble on point A that set them so far back in terms of the time for the map finish overall, as well as the ultimates that they had to play around with. That allowed Altiora to just bank up into the next amplification matrix, swap into that Bastion, and know they can just post behind the window, have the Bastion absolutely hammer the front line, and there is nothing Shikigami can do but stand there and take it, because if at any moment they step away from that payload, overtime burns out and they lose the map regardless if all 5 members survive.
I gotta give some appreciation over to Lukewarm as well, because something we saw in map number 1, it kind of felt like we were seeing a return of that in King's Row, where Plato was just super dominant in terms of pressure output, and that, especially when you look at Rhine compositions, that is a major factor that is indicative of a team that is winning or a team that is losing. If you have that differential in your favor, it certainly bodes well for you. But then we saw that swap, that extra element that Altiora were throwing out, where we saw Lukewarm playing, you know, first the Hanzo looking for the picks, but then the really successful part was Cassidy offering up some flanking opportunities, some more aggressive opportunities as well for them to push forward and have more burst damage rather than straight up output. And it seemed like that kind of worked in their favor very, very well. They were able to string some stuff together. Fortunately, we did come back out of a pretty lengthy break this time around. I promise it'll be quick. We're going to be moving into a map number 3 in just a couple minutes. We'll see you there for it. Two maps down, it's a 2-0 once again, just like our first series, but this one feels a little bit different, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the 2-0 scoreline, I don't think is really fair to how close these matches have been. We went to the full 3 matches of Antarctic. We went to nearly 3 full rounds of King's Row. You can tell that both of these teams are very much computed with what the other is playing. It really is just a case of who is better at the defense, because they're both so well versed in that aggression. The attacking sides are pretty much perfectly spot on. It's just the defenses where things take a little bit of a fumble.
Yeah, that is something that I think both of these teams are looking to kind of shore up. They obviously had some time during the break to kind of figure out, okay, what exactly did we need to do? What, obviously, off angles do we need to start looking out for and be more aware of while we're pushing back in and rotating into the next fight defensively? But they're going to have a lot of opportunity here, because there is certainly, I would say, some high potential to see a little bit of a repeat from what we just saw in King's Row on map number 3, which is going to be Havana. So, as we've talked in the past, over the course of today, there is certainly some different compositions that they could pull out. We've seen that from our first series, but this one seems like through and through, the expectation is going to be that battle between the Rhine compositions of these two teams.
Yeah, and I mean, I can 100% as well see the reasoning that Shikigami decided to take us to this map. And it is because, like we said, like the defensive side tends to be where we see some of these teams falter. Havana is pretty much regarded, especially when it comes to point C, as just being one of the worst points to attack. Right, it's very easy to defend. It's very similar to King's Row Point C, where if that payload slows down at any moment in time, you are just able to fully take control of that space, because you have the high ground, you have the faster respawns, you have a lot of chokes that they're funneled into, the fact that they have to walk across the open space at its bridge as well. The teeny little asterisk in that sentence in between the matchups between these two teams, however, is that the payload would first have to stop on point C.
Doesn't do that quite often.
It doesn't really do that when it comes to when these two teams are attacking. So it really is going to be, if one team on the defense is able to take an inch, they're going to take not just an absolute mile, but potentially the entire series.
Yeah, and I think when I look at this map as well, one other thing that really sticks out to me, especially with teams that like to play those Rhine compositions, is that really, really aggressive front hold defensively. You're utilizing that Mei. I mean, all of the elements are in play. Everything that you would expect to see from that rush, it's all out there. They're all playing it. It's mirrored on both sides. So my expectation here would be, okay, which of these teams is going to find a little bit more success? Because this could very well not even make it into that final stage. We could see these teams duke it out and one of them get stuck in this first stage of the map, because they can lose so much of their time bank trying to break out a spawn and finding ways out. A tumultuous endeavor. It's difficult to find a way. Both of these teams have obviously shown that they can win through pressure, they can win through flanking. I think they're going to have to kind of employ either or multiple of those to be able to break out just in general.
Yeah, I mean, even just like having that composition swap as well, like when we did first see that really aggressive frontal choke push coming through from defensive teams on Havana, we would actually see the DPS on the attacking side swap to something like a Farah, just because you were able to very quickly boost out of spawn and put a lot of pressure from the aerial down. Altiora is going to be looking for that aggressive, just straight up hold them at the spawn doors trope for as long as possible. It makes sense if you're not running something like that Widowmaker who wants control of that ledge, because if you lose this fight here because of how close you actually take the fight to the attacking side spawn, you're guaranteed to get another one when you respawn before you actually hit that first corner. As Shikigami decided they're going to forego the cast, they're going to opt in for the Bastion, and already we can see Altiora just taking so much pressure from that Bastion. Lamps forced from both sides, but Altiora did have to invest this a little bit sooner. Plato not able to find the room, however, forced back with some really good fire strikes coming on from Kindred.
Good ball there as well, denied that pressure on the Bastion. The side, no tank code, and no thank you, and who's gonna fall? So will Plato, and now Shikigami has no more damage and no more players left standing up. Altiora, they are successful in their first offensive hold. I mean, already a little bit of a switch up from King's Row.
Well, Paradox was also able to build into that amp matrix. Keep an eye on Kindred, by the way. We've seen Reinhardt's just like look for really aggressive, spooky shadows to come out and surprise them. They're actually having to use that Mayward to make sure that he is able to charge back to be with the rest of his team, given that he was spotted out by Anhu. And Matrix comes through from Wisp, but Kindred's not actually able to make it into the lamp in time. Really good concussive comes out from Plato, be able to bounce towards that Reinhardt and deny him from regrouping with the team. And without the Rein, there is absolutely nothing to slow the frontline pressure that Shikigami is able to load onto Altiora, and they're finally out of spawn and moving forward.
7.5 off the clock, though. So Shikigami, they move forward, but some of that time. Altiora, though, they're going to be matching 4 ult for here. The big thing to look out for is going to be control, especially around the objective should the fight happen there. Blizzard is going to be the name of the game for that. Plato, though, looking for one of those opening picks, or at least opening pressure as lukewarm from the high ground. Nobody can really block this. He can just go for it.
Kindred actually tries to go for the Shatter as well, off of the Deadeye, and the fight that force faded away. It does get blocked, but that means that the shield is just there and ripped apart for Lukewarm. And unfortunately for Shikigami, they were just boxed in. Deadeye on one side, Shatter on another, and Altiora are able to slow Shikigami and send them back to spawn once again. The good news for Shikigami is that they have more space to work with than last time. The bad news is that they lack control of high ground. So as a result, they are going to have to go for these side flank routes, trying to just push under as quickly as possible, but the engagement's not clean. Wisps gets lost in the mix, and Lukewarm from the high ground has an absolute shooting gallery below them.
That's going to be one of the main things I think it's going to be a struggle for Shikigami to deal with, and you can already see Plato just going ahead, mirroring this selection. Lukewarm from the high ground, there's no real inherent answer for it. So now Plato can at least fire back, so it's not for free, but overall, you still gotta kind of lean on the side of economy here if you're looking at this from a third-party perspective. And Altiora, they have it in their back pocket.
You can hear it as well. All of these headshots coming through from Lukewarm. He's already built up another Deadeye. Shatter comes through, but the counter Shatter is greater. Shikigami should be able to take it, but Stone comes in with a saving Blizzard. And as a result, all of that momentum that Shikigami were looking to pick up on is being drained away. They've lost vague Wisps in the background as well, so he's going to be staggered out. Another 30 seconds that they have to wait, time that they cannot afford to give away, given the fact that this is final fight territory. Altiora once again can cement themselves onto this high ground, and Shikigami, without anything other than that matrix, just have to hold themselves around this corner and hope that Altiora walk into them.
Rookie window as well. And out here, they break down that wall. Though for Shikigami, they've found a way in. They've gotten some skills. The Lukewarm is firing back in a big way. Kindred, though, gets dropped by Shikigami, and it's overtime ticking now, where this could actually warrant another fight here for Altiora, and it's going to be Soundbearer versus Soundbearer for that one as well.
Yeah, you can see the pressure coming up from Altiora, not to win this fight at the moment, but to push Shikigami into a position where they have to invest either the Soundbearer or the Blizzard, because as you said, there is going to be another contest coming on through. They've spotted one member away, but Anhu in the Blizzard, the wall is good, and it does allow them to keep themselves on this cut, but the Ice Block comes through from Stone. Still Kiwi drops in the Soundbearer for the sustain to come out from Altiora, And as a result, they might be able to turn this around. Firestrike's not able to connect onto Wisp, so the Moira stays standing, but they lose Hinge. Plato goes down, the Moira gets pinned, Wisps is taken down by Kindred, the Shadow comes on through, and there is nothing that Shikigami can do. Altiora once again just wrestling that high ground control, pushing and prodding so much additional pressure onto the members of Shikigami every single time they lose that fight, every single time they have to go back to their spawn point and walk straight onto the payload. Lukewarm is just able to absolutely blitz, not just through the health buff, but the time bank that's available for the attacking side.
In stark contrast to what we saw on King's Row, I mean, first point defensive hole, but this is exactly what we were talking about when we were getting to this map, that because of the elements at play, when you're playing this Rhine composition, especially from the defensive side, there obviously is a lot of time to take away from a team where they can't gain that momentum, they can't establish themselves in the map, and that's exactly what we saw for Shikigami. And another big thing I think that really favored Altiora was the fact that Lukewarm was able to get a lot of value out of those flanks. Now Shikigami on their defense, looking to try to, I guess, recapture a lot of those same things, but Altiora, they should expect this. They know this is coming, so plenty of opportunity to figure out a way around it or past it, which I think is probably the direction they're going to take.
Yeah, it definitely looks like it. If they do come out with this composition where the Winston can just try and jump into that backline, and then Shikigami, they're going to be split apart from themselves. Half of them are going to want to stay on this frontline push, and the rest of them, by trying to peel for that backline, are going to put themselves in a position where they could potentially get taken down. But Altiora decided that no, they're going to just try and mirror it first of all, but the anti-nade comes through. Paradox stays on the Ana, gets the anti-nade to connect onto the members of Shikigami. Doesn't actually manage to find a pick off of it, but it is really good thinking. And it only really burns into about 10 seconds off that time bank, because you're the attacking side. You can absolutely switch things up and still be able to push onto these fights super quickly afterwards.
Yeah, I think the big thing that I'm looking out for in these fights is where Lukewarm is positioned. Are they going to be opting for the flank like we saw Plato doing on Shikigami's attack? Instead, Altiora opted to go hard left, out and play together. Kindred's shield taking a lot of damage in the process. At least for now, Altiora is able to push forward and lay down some feet. They're going to be losing bodies anyway. Shikigami just so stable, so composed, right next to the enemy spawn.
Yeah, Shadow comes on through just to be able to finish off that fight and make sure that Altiora are not able to either keep themselves contesting or build more ultimate percentage. As Shikigami now with ultimates online can start to cycle these through and really punch Altiora's time down so that they really don't have a lot of time to be able to play around with. There's the first ultimate. Amplification Matrix comes on through. Firestrike to try and follow up. Zan, who was able to connect onto Lukewarm, but the Shadow comes out from Kindred. The Rhine does go down, and Altiora don't have any follow-up damage to play off of the back of it, so Shikigami are still able to keep themselves in this fight and keep Altiora locked in spawn. They're about to push Altiora down to 2 minutes remaining, and they've only got an Ant Matrix and a Deadeye, which is immediately going to be negated by just hiding behind the payload.
A lot of pressure already taken by Shikigami. Altiora just throwing everything that they have into that shield and whatever they can find around it as well. And just like that, an explosive start for Altiora. This surely is going to be their spawn breakout play. As we see Lukewarm connecting with the Deadeye, and now it's just about finding those last few kills. Yes, Stone falls, but I mean, come on, the respawn's right there. They're ready to go. But 145, not a lot of play.
Not a lot of play, but not a lot of ultimates available for Shikigami in this next fight. So they are going to have to take a fight and take it as quickly as possible. Burn out as many ultimates from Altiora's side so that you can cycle into ultimates of your own, but also that you can get another chance to be able to contest this. But a wall comes on through, stopping them from being able to take that high ground approach. As Altiora now have guaranteed that Plato doesn't get that position that Lukewarm was able to hold Shikigami hostage to for so long.
Off the top approach, Shikigami's going to be dropping down, and a lot of control being thrown out, trying to lock it down, but he's able to maneuver his way out of that death trap. Nonetheless, though, Altiora, just as we've already talked about, we just have so much resources. A great wall coming out from Andrew, and that might actually help them turn things. They have to deal with Lukewarm, though, or else it's going the other direction. The wall actually puts Plato into a bad position here, still down extremely low, but unable to find the kill. Now finally he drops, and Altiora looking to find the last couple of kills that they need to end this killer forward because they only have 30 seconds left.
Well, and Matrix comes in through from Altiora. Lukewarm pushes forward, knowing that Fate is going to have to back up because of it. Wisps drops an Amp Matrix of their own, but it's just to try and keep the team healed up through it. And as a result, Altiora, with a really nice timed wall as well as lamp, are able to keep themselves situated on that payload and push it that last little bit necessary to net themselves a victory.
And all around, too. I mean, we obviously have spent a lot of time focusing in on some individual moments and plays that were made by some of these players, because obviously that's kind of the point here. We're trying to see what these players are made of and what they're capable of truly in terms of punching up. I mean, either being at a P1 or P2 level. And I think holistically, everybody kind of stepped up. We saw those really nice saves, Paradox, Kindred making some really fight-swinging plays as well. Stone, incredible walls, Lukewarm, really great job on finding those flanks and operating them. And still Kiwi, I mean, just controlling the pacing. Also, really good element on their defense, kind of stepping them up. Altiora, they look honestly pretty formidable.
I mean, we said it would really be the difference between which of these teams is able to adapt into being able to apply the skills that we saw them when they were attacking to that defensive half. And it definitely felt like Altiora were able to do just that. And you can really see, like, the fact that they knew as well, like, take away the high ground. Every single time Shikigami were able to try and push towards that high ground, there was a wall stopping them. Like you said, Stone was definitely one of those players that was impressing in terms of using that Mei utility to the absolute best possible use, because they wrote the script. There's a reason that they're pushing Lukewarm into that position. They're like, oh, they're going to do exactly what we tried to do because it worked so well. What are we going to do? We're going to deny them from it. And it was really good team coordinated play coming out, very good IGLing as well, to be able to not just focus down on those specific members, but to deny the cast the flank routes and guarantee that you don't have to worry about the high ground the same way that you forced Shikigami to worry about it when the shoe was on the other foot.
Yeah, and of course, that was a great match, and I'm just as excited to be able to talk to someone about it, and that's exactly what we're going to be doing here in just a minute. We're going to go to a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to be talking with one of our favorite players on this team, one of the ones that we know quite well, actually. Kindred is going to be here with us. You won't want to miss it. We'll see you there for it.